Hey y'all. In a previous video, I mentioned the place of isolation and loneliness I had gotten to while I was dating Brock. As I withdrew from everything, I really just got to a place of only hanging out with Brock or my family. And I came to a place of turmoil. And when I thought about that today, that felt like a little bit of a strong word to use. But as I thought about it, I realized that's exactly where I was. I'd been dating Brock for close to a year at this point, and it it felt like I was always in trouble with him. He was always angry with me about something. There was outbursts, whether it was yelling and shouting or occasionally, hitting me, punching me. He was telling me that he loved me, but it felt like he was angry with me a lot. And then my parents were trying to help me, but they didn't really know how. And I was already in this very defensive place. And so when they tried to talk with me about anything, to me, it felt like they were also angry with me. And so I got to a place where people said that they loved me, people that were close to me and I cared about, but I didn't feel love, and I didn't know how to express that to anybody. And so instead I would get frustrated and I would go out for a run and I would just pound that pavement as hard as I could until I was tired, and then I would walk, and then I would come home and I would lay on the car in the driveway and I would look up at the stars, and I knew that God was up there, and I would think about him. Other times I would be driving home, maybe from Brock's house, or a job that got off later in the evening, and I would be upset, and I would just want to feel that somebody cared for me. And so I didn't want to hurt myself, but I wanted to do something where others would have to respond in a caring way. And so I used to think about driving my car off the road and into a tree or against a barrier. And, I never acted on it, but I thought about it a lot. I wondered if I could, veer off and hit a tree. Should I hit it on the passenger side? Would that damage me? Would I be hurt enough to need to go to the hospital? But I didn't want life-threatening injuries from something, but I also didn't want to only damage the car, and then people would be mad at me for being stupid for the way that I drove or making a mistake. And so again, I never acted on it, mostly because I didn't know how to do it right to get the outcome that I wanted. Um, More often than either of those, the running or thinking about things in the car, was I would cry myself to sleep. And more appropriately, I would cry out to God and cry out, cry myself to sleep. But I was thankful that I had grown up in the church and I had grown up knowing of God's unconditional love. I hadn't accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior yet, but I knew that God was faithful and that He loved me unconditionally. And I would ask Him, why can't anybody else love me this way? But I was so, so grateful that I knew that God did. And I clung to that life for dear life. I mean, that feels like an extreme, but truly I was clinging to his love for, for life. And um I just, I think back on that time, and I'm so very grateful that I knew of his unconditional love, because I think it gave me something of hope in there. And I can't quite explain that, but anyways, it was a lifeline for me, and it saved me. And so if you don't know of God's unconditional, faithful, never-ending love, I'd love to tell you about it, or how Jesus died for us so that we could all be saved. Love to tell you about that too. Wishing everybody healthy and safe relationships. Take care.